Welcome back to another episode of Unleashing the Yaris. And if this is your first time here on the channel, welcome. My name is Luke Jones, this is the Jonesy Express, and today on this episode I'll be finding out how much power this GR Yaris makes in both front wheel drive and all wheel drive, so I have a baseline power figure to know how much power it makes before I start modifying it, and also to see how much power it loses through the drivetrain. Let's jump right in, head to a workshop and get her on the dyno.
Unfortunately, due to a much needed clutch replacement that ended up leading to an upgrade, along with fitting an aftermarket downpipe and midpipe, I couldn't dyno test the Yaris in its bone stock form to check its all-wheel power. But after some thorough research and internet surfing, I found that the stock power varies between 155 and 160 all-wheel kilowatts. That's pretty damn impressive for a 3-cylinder car. Now, let's see how much power this baby makes. I thought the first dyno run was pretty successful, producing some decent numbers even though the air conditioning was on.
I was on.
Once the aircon was off, we had a few more runs which produced some pretty consistent numbers. After some review of the numbers, we tightened up the straps and decided to do a few more runs which produced up to an additional 15 kilowatts. Some would argue that this can dodgy up the numbers, but then there will also be the contributing factor that different branded dynos can produce different results. That I will test later. GR Yarises are known for catastrophic heat soak, so we decided to test how this affects the performance and output of the car by leaving the dyno fan off and conducting a few more runs. Due to the heat soak, the Yaris dropped around 50 kilowatts in power and failed to come on boost. The green figure is the maximum power the Yaris made when the straps were loose, and the red figure is the maximum power the Yaris made when the straps were tightened. As you can see in the heat soak comparison test, the Yaris failed to make over 140 kilowatts, let alone peaking on boost. This goes to show the severity of a poor cooling system, and while the overall cooling of your car is very important.
Okay, so I'm on my way to Crank Motorworks now. It's probably been around, I don't know, 2 or 3 months since this Yaris was on the WRC dyno. It's done around 17,000 Ks. So first, when it's on the dyno, we're going to run it in all-wheel drive, see what it makes at all-wheel drive, and then we're going to run it in front-wheel drive so we can get an accurate comparison and, just for my own curiosity, see if there's much of a fluctuation between the Crank Motorworks dyno and the WRC dyno, as they the exact same brand model dynos. One thing I also did in between that time is I painted the calipers on the Yaris. Supercheap gave me some paint to do that. So if you ever want to paint the calipers on your car or anything related to that, head down to Supercheap and they'll sort you out. Anyway, let's go to Crank Motorworks and chuck this baby on the dyno. Alright, so I'm down here at Crank Motorworks today, and as I mentioned before, I'm going to put the Yaris on the dyno and see how much power it makes at all 4 wheels. But while we're here, we're going to chuck it in dyno mode and see what it makes at the front wheels as well. Got Miles in there, ready to go, and I don't really know what to expect power-wise. He's saying hello. Hey Miles. But it does have 84,000 Ks on it. It does have an aftermarket clutch and downpipe, but I'm expecting around 140, 150. Maybe more if we're lucky. Anyway, let's go see what she makes. How much power do you reckon it'll make? Not that close.
150 kilowatts. And all 4 wheels are 150 kilowatts. Or 160. 150, 160. Yeah.
Alright, so I've got all the fans on, so I'm going to talk a bit loud so you can hopefully hear me. But the figures, actually, I'm kind of happy with, to be honest. Like, currently, as it sits on the dyno, it's got around 83,000 Ks on it. So obviously, with that amount of Ks, you would lose power. It does have an aftermarket downpipe, mid-pipe, and clutch. So maybe that's helped raise some of the power that it lost over the kilometers of the years. But 150 at all wheel, can't really complain. I'm interested to see if it makes similar power at the front wheels like it did when I went to WRSC a couple months ago. But we'll see. We'll see what it comes back with, and yeah, go from there. So we just did the front wheel drive run, and it's very, very similar to when we did front wheel drive run at WRSC. There's only about a 5 kilowatt difference from the max run, but overall, I'm happy, Miles is happy, so now we can start putting some aftermarket parts. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with the numbers that I actually got. It was kind of similar to what I expected, so I wasn't disappointed. But yeah, it's actually a good baseline to work from. But the thing I can't believe is this car feels quick for something that only makes 150 kilowatts, which in the scheme of the world these days, and everyone with their 2000 horsepower GDRs, 150 kilowatts is not much. All right, let's break down how much power this car actually lost through the drivetrain. So from factory, they make 200 kilowatts at the flywheel. And when we dynoed this at all 4 wheels, all-wheel drive, it only made 150 kilowatts, which equivalates to a 50 kilowatt loss, which is around 25% loss through the drivetrain. But with the front-wheel drive, it was a lot less. From the flywheel to the front wheels, the only loss was 16 kilowatts, which is around 8%. Those numbers is a big fucking difference. Now, if we want to go further, we can break down to see how much power was lost from the front wheels to the all-wheel drive, which was 34 kilowatts, which is around 18.5% drivetrain loss. So essentially, from your transfer case, drive shaft and rear diff, axles out to the wheels, you're losing 34 kilowatts somewhere, somehow. And obviously when it comes to building cars, depending on what your purpose is, this is where you can install different parts, aftermarket, all that kind of stuff to alleviate that. What I'm actually leaning on now, as I'm talking to you, is my Skyline, which is in a million pieces. But this is probably something I will test on my Skyline as well for my own curiosity, to be quite honest. But yeah, essentially, they are the figures, they are the stats. The numbers don't lie. But this is all I've got for you guys in this episode. Thanks for hanging out and watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you own a Yaris or you're looking to own a Yaris, well, there are some figures for you. Don't worry about doing it yourself. I mean, if you want to, you can. Go for it. I wanted to, that's why I did it. But next episode, I'm tossing up if I'm going to just go ahead and modify this thing, or if I want to go and thrash it around Eastern Creek Motorsport Park first and on the drag strip to see what it does down the quarter-mile stock and to see how it actually goes around a circuit factory. Factory tires, wheels, suspension, engine components, stock. See how it handles and see what it can do. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I look forward to seeing you next time.